Bearslayer Canto 2. Bearslayer begins his life as a hero by Andrejs Pumpurs. Scene 1. The first heroic deed, the slaying of the bear since ancient times, in fruitful Baltic lands, where flows the Daugava in its winding bed, and in the fields the barley ripening stands, a life of joy the Latvians all have led. Upon the bank once stood by Kegums, town, of Lielvarde's lord the famous halls. There yet today a cataract pours down, and through the cliffs into the river falls. Where springtime spirit kind on nature smiled, a wonder came on its appointed day. The land was waking fast from winter mild, and cheerful folk their labors deemed but play, while tones of youths and maidens blushing coy mixed with the song of birds to greet the morn. All felt within them nature's perfect joy, in ancient times to blissful freedom born. The Lielvarde lord strolled in the field, together with his son, a lad full fair. But 18 youthful summers was the yield, the span of time that graced the lord's young heir. The old man ever sought his son to show in nature how the Godhead close by stands, and in its rhythms mighty powers flow, in heavens, waters, forests, and the lands. Conversing thus, unmarked their path they found into the shadows at the forest's verge. The old man sat to rest upon the ground, beneath the oaks where woods and meadow merge. When all at once, with angry gnashing jaws, a savage bear from out the forest ran. To save himself the old man had no pause, his life's last breath due in a moment's span. The young man turned in haste with swiftness rare. He seized the creature by its gaping jaw, with mighty strength he tore apart the bear. A baby goat had troubled him no more. When thus his son revealed such godlike power, the old man trembling uttered up this view. You are the chosen hero, shown this hour, as prophesied in ancient times for you. Bearslayer's origins are revealed, full 18 years ago, this very day. A little boat ran up upon the land, and from it stepped a sage both old and grey, who held secure an infant in his hand. Though agade, still with youthful step he strode, my task in fate's great purpose soon laid bare, to take this sturdy boy to my abode, and raise him, teach and train him as my heir. This sage was Videlos, sent by the gods, to tell how, deep within the forest wild, a human babe was found against all odds, and that a she-bear's milk sustained the child. For him, as told, it is the gods' firm will, to be a hero and to strive for right. His name with fear the wicked heart will fill, and evil doers, trembling, put to flight. There in the west, his further wisdom said, against the god of thunder risen stands a fearsome herd of raging monsters dread, whose cross-shaped horns rip at the eastern lands. The gods will fight, and they will live on all, but from our people freedom will be lost. Our famous heroes struggling brave will fall, against the foreign foe will pay the cost. I Videlos a lengthy life have had, in Romuve's sacred grove of oak. 1,000 joyful messages are sad, I brought to chieftains or to lesser folk. This is the worst, this news I bring, make known to you, O Lielvarde's lord, more difficult for me no other thing, that is a part within my life's rich hoard. Yet do not grieve, O countrymen, but know, remembering the deeds of men of yore, as ages pass the people's strength will grow, and battles won will free our race once more. Though destiny now not even lets me see, how long the yoke that on our people falls. Behold, the fading sunlight summons me, the golden Baltic sun my farewell calls. Wise Videlos now ceased, his message brought, and in his boat he hastened to depart. Upon the bank I stood in deepest thought, the herald's passage marked with heavy heart. The Daugava now, in Kegums' rapid spray, tossed hard the little boat upon the stream. A fading light came from the sun's last ray, the herald's boat fast faded in its gleam. The years since then are gone in time's long span, while destinies will I solemnly bore through. The gift of Videlos is grown to man, you are that sturdy boy, the child was you. From this day forth, in honor of your deed, Bearslayer is your name, most surely meet. You saved your father in the hour of need, the world has seen your first heroic feat. Scene 2. Bearslayer is sent out into the world, he is given the task of learning. I give you now a colt with saddle fine, trim steed and sword of heavy metal true, a spear, a shield and silver spurs once mine, and headdress trimmed with fur of martens too. Upon the morrow you will haste away to Bertniex's famous castle gate, where dwells my friend of happy boyhood day. In Bertniex's castle lies your fate. Both greet and hail, and tell him you aspire to learn in famous Bertniex's school, sent by your father. Knowledge to acquire, where virtue true and cunning wisdom rule. Old Bertniex will take you as a friend, and in his ancient castle clear will show the chests where sacred tomes the ages spend, that secrets deep of destiny's purpose know. These sacred books our lofty morals teach, and tell about the history of our land, explain the gods, and faith and duty preach, and sing about the Latvian hero band. Of all this sacred knowledge, and much more, there learn as 7 seasons passing go, how heroes bold acquit themselves in war, when they in battle strive against the foe. He departs from Lielvarde next morning, fitted richly as a lord. Bearslayer stood at Lielvarde's gate. He buckled on his massive trusty sword, took up his spear and shield and felt their weight. He placed his fur-trimmed cap upon his head and, standing there before his father dear, made sad farewell, although no tear was shed. Though brief and stern, the parting was sincere. The old man spoke of Lielvarde's fame, our ancient clan throughout the folk is known. No shameful stain attaches to our name, our fathers past their heroes' worth have shown. And you, my son Bearslayer, at your birth, by destinies will were marked for honor too. If you pursue his plan and show your worth, the gods will guard you well and cherish you. The world's seductions young men's minds soon reach, while youths, unwitting, oft themselves deceive, so hasten not to do what others teach, but let them seek your counsel to receive. To recognize the truth is passing rare, to speak it plain unvarnished harder still. In life who learns true witness brave to bear becomes attuned to virtue's righteous will. Maintain in struggles stout your people's way, your grandsire's teachings always give respect, and never heed what hypocrites may say, who urge you freedom's spirit to neglect. Such people for themselves good fortune seek, in finding victims God's name oft employ, but later with the devil's poison wreak. They serve but evil and at length destroy. The Latvian people on their own fair shore do not bow down to lords high-born as sage, they choose themselves their chiefs in time of war the magistrates in older, peaceful age. The people know of those who earned great fame by toiling hard in mighty labors long. To these come lasting praise and honored name, as heroes known they live in endless song. With earnest soul Bearslayer heard his Lord, the heartfelt words of life's wise teachings large. Into his breast an urgent feeling poured, the wish that he fulfill his father's charge. And so he promised to observe all that, embraced his father, pressed his hand so stout, then leapt into his saddle, doffed his hat, and, raising shield and lance, rode boldly out. Scene 3. Bearslayer meets Spadala at Icecrockle. He arrives at the castle. Within the castle, watching from his chair, sat old Icecrockless wrapped in thought profound. His only daughter, Spadala the fair, sat at the pane with beads and rings decked round. Her face possessed a haunting beauty rare, but yet her eyes showed wildness without bound. And so that tender spell she did not weave, that gently draws and steals the young man's heart. Her ardent eyes too swiftly could deceive, to gaze into them risked a burning dart. Oh, Spadala, her father sought her leave, and slowly raised his head in thoughtful art. I wish to know and answer still this morn, whence come those finest jewels that, preening vain, you wear your neck and hands thus to adorn? That Spadala then started, he saw plain, the question shocked her that his voice had borne, yet in a trice her answer came again. Godmother gave to me these jewels to own, when last into our village she came here. In golden caskets more I have been shown. The old man spoke. Alas, my daughter dear, such gifts to take I cannot more condone, and in the future must forbid, I fear. She is a witch, and in the people's view, a fearsome dragon shelters in her care. She feeds it on the flesh of humans too. The dragon brings her jewels and objects rare, dark evil things, and so I say to you, a pious girl her gifts should never wear. Now Spadala, to hide her blushing face, looked out into the courtyard, near too late, and spoke as though his words she gave no grace. A visitor is hither come in state. Look where a youthful knight has reached this place, and down below will pass in through the gate. The castle of Icecrockle lonely stands, far distant from the Daugava's verdant bounds, and in the forest roam wild bears in bands, while in the night the howl of wolves loud sounds. Uncertain paths lead through these risky lands, and strangers seldom reach the castle's grounds. Thus Spadala with wonder took good heed, to see what rider thence the path had brought, who rode into the castle on his steed. Icecrockless too from out the window sought to test of him his measure and his breed, as young Bearslayer reigned within the court. He bowed towards the window, then, polite, he said his path to Bertniex must run, his neighbor's care he sought thus for the night. Icecrockless hurried out, his friendship won, and warmly told his pleasure at the sight of famous Lielvarde's mighty son. Bearslayer falls under Spadala's spell. The handsome youth dismounted lithely then, a stable lad swift to his stirrup ran. He pressed the old man's hand once and again, and entered straight the castle's lofty span. But soon as Spadala approached the men, within his bones a shivering cold began. Such beauty in his life had had no peer. The deep, dark eyes of Spadala grew wide, and in their depths enchanted flame burned clear. With outstretched hand a greeting warm she cried, a stately knight so bold is welcome here. A future hero's presence swells our pride. His tongue struck dumb, Bearslayer found no word of jeweled beauty fit to conquer men. In his short life he had not seen nor heard. No answer came, so Spadala turned then, with gliding litheness serpent-like she stirred, and deeply gazed into his eyes again. Her body moved with strangely supple grace, so lithe it made the young man's senses swim. But then Icecrockless sent the girl apace to make at once and serve a feast for him. So soon her sensuous beauty left the place, Bearslayer's mind returned to matters grim. When later fitting words he found at last, then Spadala made answer in fair guise. The frightful swooning moment now was past. The young man, heeding wisdom's counsel wise, firm armed himself, though piercing looks flew fast, that burning shot from Spadala's dark eyes. The night drew on. The fleeting time soon went, and Spadala, uneasy at the hour, soon said she felt within her limbs the bent before the midnight's chime to seek her bower. And if Bearslayer too were weary spent, to bed she would direct him, in the tower. The young man went, by Spadala struck deep, but by eyes crockless with, rest well, consoled. She led the youth across the castle's keep, into a jeweled bedroom hung with gold. This night in godlike comfort you will sleep, she smiling said, Bearslayer, hero bold. Bearslayer gazed with wonder at the sight, as soft and fine as drifted snow the bed, with purple covers decked, and sheets of white, and trimmed all round with ribbons of blood red. Sweet-smelling breezes wafted through the night, and like enchantments circled round his head. He stared at Spadala's lush beauty rare, bewitching charms that drew his yearning praise. Forgetting straight all caution's wisdom there, the young man dared his arms to her to raise. At once a shadow dark flew through the air, and Spadala straight vanished. From his gaze, the midnight sky a host of stars had brought. From heaven shone the moonlight's ghostly glow, that in the valley bars of silver wrought. Within his room the youth, with spirit low, threw back his shutter, gazed out on the court, and heavy air breathed sadly, deep and slow. Once more it seemed to him that in the air dark shadows, high across the moon flew hence. Perhaps foul witches from the devil's lair to blackest work flew out, he knew not whence. At once Bearslayer firm resolved to dare, and seek how Spadala had gone from thence. Spadala is revealed as a witch next morning soon the youth made this request. It pleased him in the castle there so well, he wished to stay a few short days as guest, there in his neighbor's pleasant halls to dwell. Eyes crockless straight agreed that he should rest, with pleasure felt his heart begin to swell. As night there deepened, Spadala soon said, our guest the castle's passages now knows, and when he wants can go alone to bed. She left the room and wished them sweet repose. To follow her Bearslayer then was led, and full of purpose from the table rose. But afterwards he crept back down below, outside within the courtyard dark to wait, from whence his watching eyes could clearly show who through the doorway passed in darkness late. At midnight hour the portal opened slow, and Spadala came out with silent gait. Her body clad in clothing deepest black, her feet with golden shoes were firmly bound. Her hair hung loose and free around her back. Her eyebrows arched, her gaze was to the ground. Her eyes he saw, where burning did not lack, her hand gripped tight a magic staff around. A twisted log lay at the courtyard's rim, and Spadala climbed up upon it high. She spoke a spell and 3 times struck the limb, firm with her staff she smote its surface dry. And, answering the hissing witch's whim, at once the log rose up into the sky. Long stood Bearslayer at the courtyard's verge, for Spadala's return he looked in vain. To seek her out he felt a mighty urge, to see the devil with the witch in train. But such a task beyond his strength would surge, and so he went back to his room again. By morning's light within the courtyard still, he saw the log back in its former place, and looking close he saw with firming wool, within the log an empty hollow space, a space a man could crawl in and not fill. At once a purpose formed for him apace. Next evening Spadala set off to bed. Bearslayer swiftly hastened to his room. He put his cap of marten on his head, with sword in hand sought out the courtyard's gloom, and, watching out for Spadala's light tread, concealed himself within the log's dark womb. Again at midnight hour she left her cell, and in her garments black her body dressed. Astride the log she spoke a magic spell, struck with her staff, and then at her behest, the branch bore both to where he could not tell, above Icecrowkle's forests on her quest. Scene 4. In the devil's pit the devil digs the pit at times beginning, so as often told, to birds and beasts gave Percon's stern commands, to dig the Daugava, come from nature's fold, to gnaw, to scratch, to peck in toiling bands. Alone the peacock sat and did not work. The devil, passing by, then asked the bird, where is the place the other creatures lurk? They dig for Percons, answer then he heard. But why, he asked, do you not labor too? To save my yellow feet, the peacock said. Then to the river bird and devil flew, and dug a chasm in the torrent's bed, which down into this pit poured straight away. From fear all creatures lost the power of speech. They all commenced to run and jump and bray, and each one found a voice with which to screech. The bears roared fierce, the wolves and dogs all howled, the pigs made grunts, the oxen lowed. Unmuted, the horses neighed, the strident cats all yowled, the blackbirds shrieked, the owls all harshly hooted. The cuckoos called, the hornets made a hum, the little birds sang loudly all around. The noise rose up, a riot of such sum, that, high in heaven, Percons heard the sound. He soon grew angry with the devil's wit, cast lightning down and blocked the water's track. A hill with high steep slopes enclosed the pit. Since then the peacock's golden feet are black. Today the people all avoid this place. Should travelers in the night risk passing still, their eyes behold foul spirits in the space that now is called the Devil's Dark Pit Hill. They enter the pit straight spadala. Swoop down to this dread place, across the starlit sky flown swiftly thence. Bearslayer crouched within the log's dark space, and struggled for his breath with swooning sense. Fierce fork-tailed dragons coiled around them there, with gold and treasure flying through the night, and breathed their fiery sparks into the air, while other witches joined them. In the height, if but a movement caught the witch's view, to save his life no mercy would be found. Down to the devil's pit the witches flew, and planted each her staff into the ground. A dozen staffs stood upright by the hill. 12 witches entered in the devil's pit. Soon bold Bearslayer had regained his will, and entered too the cavern. Through a slit within the pit a thick deep darkness reigned, and round his head bats fluttered in the gloom, until at length a glimpse of light he gained, and, going further, saw a lofty room. All kinds of things inside were found in store, too many far the name for each to learn, with skulls and bones, and teeth and pelt and claw, with mounted heads and antlers all in turn, round ladles, cauldrons, wooden bowls and pots, and dippers, wicker baskets, mortars, urns, great hammers, pitchforks, rakes, in heaping lots, cartwheels, old whetstones, broomsticks scorched with burns, black books and parchments that all good defiled. A corner dim held plants and dried up grass, on shelves stood boxes next to baskets piled, with herbs and potions stored in jars of glass. Upon the hearth a sullen fire dull burned, and in its light the walls unpleasant glowed. Hung from a crooked hook a cauldron churned. The fire's pale gleams foul toads and black cats showed, while in the corners snakes writhed round the room, and through the smoke flew bats and jet black owls. Bearslayer started, hidden in the gloom, when all at once the creatures all made howls. They hissed, and croaked, they whistled, such a roar. And soon a crone, a witch all old and bowed, into the chamber entered through a door, who, since the room seemed empty, called aloud, "What foul ill wind has brought base spirits here? When clear is known that all who tread this place a broken neck and dreadful fate must fear." These words the creatures silenced in a trace. The witch then took a ladle in her hand, and going to the cauldron thrust it in. The time has come to supper to command. The meat is cooked. The meal can now begin. And thrice upon the cauldron's side she beat. The 12 came in, a place for each reserved. Their portion was a sausage and some meat. Bearslayer thought that suckling pig was served. A door into a second chamber led. This room held but a chopping block alone. The walls and ceilings like the floor were red, and on the block a blood-red axe was thrown. The room was starkly empty but for this. And further yet there led another door. Into this open chamber, without miss, the witches went with bowls of meat. He saw horrors are revealed. Bearslayer followed silently behind, and through the door he saw a chamber bright, with pallid chairs and tables it was lined, and all the walls were of a color light. 2 stoves of like pale color. At one side, one glowed with coals, and one held beans of white. The witches at their meal he here espied, who ate in deathly silence every bite. Again, a door a lofty room clear showed, where vaulted ceilings stood on pillars tall, and all the room with golden color glowed. Inside the room he saw 12 beds in all. The sated witches each removed her dish, cleared up the table, swept the bones from view. Into the kitchen was the old one's wish, and sharpened sight my spells will give to you. Your suitors soon will come hence to this place, and all the brides should thus themselves prepare. On hearing this, the youth went back a pace, hid in the kitchen, in the corner there. The old one took a pot of powder then, and brushed it in their eyes with touches light. Then afterwards they all went out again. Their eyes, enchanted, now were glowing bright. Bearslayer sought for Spadala at last, but still her form he could not recognize. The pot of powder he had noted fast, and with its contents smeared himself his eyes. It was as though a veil fell from his sight, and now he saw unblinded, without whims. Still in the cauldron, from the meal that night, there lay the scraps of little children's limbs. And where he thought a sausage to have seen, were foul black snakes, boiled squirming in their gore. In that red chamber, where he first had been, of copper pure, were ceiling, walls and floor. And on the block the axe was copper too, although its use he did not understand. Of silver pure the second room on view, both chairs and tables, lanterns, all at hand. What seemed like stoves were silver chests. He saw, in one gold jewels, the other precious pearls. Still further, gazing through the final door, he saw the ceiling glittered gold in swirls, of gold the beds between the pillars tall. Back in the silver room the robes they bore, as in a bathhouse, down each witch let fall. Just golden slippers on their feet they wore. From cupboards now the old one gave the girls bejeweled brooches, bracelets for their arms, and dressed their hair with softly shining pearls. A wonder to the youth, for with her charms now Spadala among the witches too, revealed herself in all her beauty there. Fair were the witches. To his wondering view, they all possessed a devilish beauty rare. Thus fine adorned they took their robes in hand into the copper chamber hastened fast, where round the log they gathered in a band, while Spadala her robe upon it cast. Then, taking up the axe she struck it there, and spoke these words aloud in hissing tone. Today as first I strike the block full square, tomorrow to this deed I will not own. Forth from the log a demon's form was led, clad as a lord, whom Spadala took hence. They sought the golden room, and chose a bed. The others did the same, and soon from thence with lovers to the other room were gone. Each lordling wore a coat of velvet black, three-cornered hat and boots that brightly shone, but from their ears small horns grew in the back. Kegums promises to serve the devil. The old one struck the log, now left alone, and boldly said, Today I strike as last, tomorrow to this deed I will not own. At this, with howling, Lucifer came fast. The greatest chief of witch and devil too, a cap of human fingernails he wore. Is all prepared? He sought the old one's view. All ready, Lord, the crone then answered sure. Then Lucifer struck hard with action bold, and in a trice the chamber filled with flame that turned the log into a carriage gold, the axe a dragon harnessed to the same. The two then rode together through the door, and sought the golden chamber, in which spot the dragon lay and rested on the floor, and from its mouth both smoke and flame forth shot. The younger witches, summoned by the sound, all greeted Lucifer in prancing pack. They entered then the kitchen at a bound, seized pitchforks in their hands, and hastened back, the pitchforks heated in the dragon's throat, and then all made a ring around the coach. The old witch stood and with her staff firm smote and cried, Come forth, in tones of sour reproach. At this, at once a wall burst open wide, and hairy demons forth a man now brought, who, deathly pale, was led in at their side. The witches formed a ring to seek their sport. On seeing him, Bearslayer too knew fear. It was the famous holy man and good, as Kegums known, a hermit who lived near, up on the hills, within a mighty wood. With monstrous voice foul Lucifer then swore, O sinner! Know your course is run this day. Your wage receive now in the dragon's maw. The pitchforks of the witches show the way. But Kegums, prone, made pleadings to implore. Prolong, O Lord, my life a tiny span, and I will truly serve your will once more. A moment's thought and Lucifer began. In vain your begging, but my urgent plight could save your life and further time ensure. The faith of Percons yields a harvest light, a daunting task, their souls to us to lure. A gift of fortune that to Baltic lands a foreign force is coming from the west, that seeks to seize the Baltic in its hands. To plant an alien faith, this is their quest. I too desire to see that faith sown free, because its growth will yield a harvest sure, for many priests already cleave to me, the bearers of the faith, whom all think pure. This task I give you. Help that faith to come, and spread it wide upon the Baltic shore. Of years I give you 3 times 9 in sum. So swear, O traitor, on this dragon's maw, the faith of Percons holy to eschew, and be a traitor, with the folk at odds. You must destroy the heroes tried and true, and bring in priests who serve strange foreign gods. Go urge the people strangers to obey, and burn and slaughter all who would oppose your final goal, that slavery hold sway. Do thus, and live until the day I chose. False Kegums echoed all with solemn vow. To Lucifer he gave his yielding praise, and made an oath unbreakable, and now all looked at Kegums with a kindly gaze. Here Lucifer announced the night at end. Together with the witches he strode sure, into the copper room his way to wend. The ancient witch the black-clad lovers bore out to the field, then sank into the ground. Down to the earth the bowing witches bent. In surging sulphur flames forth at a bound, vile Lucifer with thunderous roaring went. Bearslayer is discovered. Bearslayer left his hiding place to go, and, passing through the rooms, he took with him a document he saw, as proof to show his presence there to witness evil grim. Although his fear grew less in starlit light, regret and bitter feelings seized his heart. Within the log once more he hid from sight, while Spadala to journey home made start. And as they flew, the crone her news revealed. Bearslayer saw our feast this night, she said, and watched your lovers, in the room concealed. Straight Spadala grew pale and then turned red. In her impassioned heart love's traces died, and wicked hatred in her breast hard smote. Why did you not say sooner? Then his pride had ended in the dragon's fiery throat. Our master chose not thus to interfere, because Bearslayer's life will soon be done. He hopes your log will bring him home from here, instead your course to Stabarog's will run, with Serenite thence flying fast. Through magic spell then on her log escape, your own into the whirlpool downward cast, from whence comes forth no one of human shape. Scene 5. Bearslayer in Stabarog's palace. Bearslayer meets Lielvarde divinely worshipped Stabarodze fair, with jeweled adornments on her robes decked round but with a weight of sorrow and deep care, from destiny's counsel home her path had found. Upon the Daugava's bank she bitter weeps, for Latvia mourns, the land she loves so well, that Stabarog's might eternal sleeps, and lonely she with mortal folk must dwell. When future ages come, will she still weep and mourn the Baltic people's bitter lot, when from the very people she loves deep their ancient fame has passed and been forgot? But where our grandsire's faith still holds firm sway, she plays a part in life that never stops. On freezing morn she melts the frost away, and saves from harm the ploughman's tender crops. She warns the boatmen at the midnight moon, lest they should fall into the whirlpool's grip. To shepherds and to travelers at the noon, she gives from bubbling springs a cooling sip. Since time began, one task she loves of all. She seeks chaste maids born on propitious days, and gives them shelter in her palace hall. She guards their virtue with her wisdom's ways, and teaches them, gives gifts, and clothes to wear. Good fortune stands upon the mother's side, into whose hearth there comes, surpassing fair, from Stabarog's maidens, now a bride. Bearslayer's senses woke apace. He lay in Stabarog's bed, and gazed in wonder round the place, and pondered whence his path had led. To him the bed seemed soft to sway, as though it rocked on gentle tides. The crystal walls revealed the day, as blue-tinged light passed through their sides. The room was rich with objects rare, a host of gold and silver bright, in pristine state each treasure there. Their beauty was a wondrous sight. Remembering, Bearslayer lay, and thought how with a witch he flew, when through the opening doors display a beauteous damsel came in view. Her face and form were sweet to sight, that at a glance was plain to see. Like silver moonbeams in the night, adorned with poppies, thus was she. Her dark blue eyes at his first look seemed gentle as the dawn's soft light, but when a closer glance he took, their whirling depths now met his sight. Her clothing's folds of pale sky blue, close to her body brushing clung. Her glowing hair fell freely too, down to her knees in locks it hung. On seeing her, Bearslayer thought a goddess now was in the room. To stand and greet her straight he sought, to thank his Savior from the tomb. But this the maid would not allow, and said his strength was sure to lack. So harsh his fate had been, and now his body's strength was not yet back. O heavenly being, tell me true, what place is this? Where am I now? I beg you, tell me, who are you? To pay you honor, this I vow, of Stabarog's maiden's eye, her crystal palace home this here. Cast in the whirlpool down to die, she rescued you and brought you clear. Bearslayer knew a joy profound that seemed to fill his breast and mind. The maiden's charm now knew no bound, for she was born of humankind. She brought in food for him to eat. She gave to him both milk and bread, a fitting meal with honey sweet, then from the room departing sped. Bearslayer recovers and leaves. Stabarog's time passed until one day, again, he woke and donned his clothes aright. The door soon opened wide and then, fair Stabarogze came in sight. Politely then she bade him tell, if rest had brought his strength of yore. Bearslayer bowed and thanked her well, and then a fervent wish he swore. He yearned to stay within her court there with the goddess long to dwell. A secret look her eyes then brought, on hearing what he had to tell. We will, perhaps, meet as you ask, eternity were not then long. But first you have the gods' stern task, a lifetime charge to right the wrong. To strive in virtue's noble cause, to serve your homeland and your folk, to seek for fame without a pause, to free their breast from sorrow's yoke. With joy Bearslayer's eyes then glowed. He spoke with youthful courage grand. I thank the gods for having showed this way to serve my fatherland. New strength I have, all to perform, since I have seen now, face to face, the heavenly Stabarog's form, most beautiful of female race. Unswerving goals to me impart, and guide my aim as targets near. I grant you both with all my heart, said Stabarogze smiling clear. Heroic youth, harsh is your lot, to fight these foes of false renown. The hidden one's dark secrets plot, strikes Badala and Kangers down. This little mirror with you take, to keep and hold, a sign of me. When evil ones grave danger make, quick hold it up for them to see. Their power will fail at your behest, when they the face of Percon's view. And Stabarogze, from a chest, as gift for him a mirror drew. She gave it, but a warning brought, to keep it and to guard it true. Bearslayer thanked her, but more sought a keepsake from the maiden too. The maiden blushed and then her hand a ribbon loosened from her hair, his cap adorned then with this band, and, glancing shyly, spoke out fair. Although of gifts I have no store, my talisman I grant this day. In kinship now I greet you sure, and wish good fortune on your way. Bearslayer, touched, no words could find to thank the maiden with full truth. Then Stabarogze spoke her mind. Now hasten forth, heroic youth. The cliff-top path I now will show, out through the crystal palace gate. This maiden is Limedo to know, to meet again will be your fate. With acorn pattern in its weave, she gave a ribbon from her hair, perhaps to that more wonders cleave, than to my mirror that you bear. Bearslayer at the door turned slow, regarding then Limedo to keen. It seemed that in her eyes' deep glow, unbidden tears were plainly seen. For further thought it was too late, his consciousness from him had flown. He fell down at the castle gate, and on the ground lay turned to stone. Scene 6. Bearslayer is returned to the world. Percons restores Bearslayer to life. The sun's first light already glowed. Upon the Daugava's banks it lay. The sky was clear and plainly showed fair weather for the coming day. But yet one cloud now took its course, that higher climbed above the land. And at its front, upon a horse, an old man rode, with whip in hand. He let run loose the prancing grey, to Staborog's cliff it dashed. His whip he cracked, and straightway great bolts of lightning brightly flashed. Vast thunderclaps in deep tones rumbled, and Staborog shook to its core. Along the cliff the boulders crumbled. Bearslayer stood, alive once more. He found it hard, clear to recall, and real the memories did not seem. One thing he knew, despite the pall, it had not happened in a dream. 2 lessons in his mind were there that left in him a knowledge sure. The trap of evil woman's snare, and noble woman's virtue pure. Henceforth he swore his back to turn against the first and passion's chains, the second's deep respect to earn, through noble tasks and endless pains. Bearslayer performs another mighty feat, now climbing down, where through the banks the purse flows. A crowd he spied, a group of people from whose ranks a boat was lowered in the tide. They wished to cross, but none was fit with strength enough to pull the oar. If room there were for him to sit, alone to row, Bearslayer swore. They boarded fast, the boat was full, hard rowed the young man then for sure. But after just the first stroke's pull, he found he held a broken oar. Without control the ferry tossed, down river drove the torrent's swirl. The people knew that all was lost, with death before their eyes awhirl. Bearslayer did not pause to scheme, but straightway rowed with his hand, and, thrusting strong against the stream, their course directed to the land. Across the Daugava's waves they fought, and reached the other side at length. The people were by wonder caught, and praised Bearslayer's mighty strength. A young man on the bank paid heed, who from the forest hauled a tree. He saw Bearslayer's mighty deed, and to the hero thus spoke free. Here is Cognesis, I am known, the mighty youth, is how I'm called, for from the woods, I have alone great logs upon my shoulder hauled. To build a fortress here we work, where purse in the Daugava flows, a refuge strong when dangers lurk, to save us from our many foes. Bearslayer made a friendly bow, and told the youth his own great name, to Icecrackle that he went now, and what the purpose why he came. They soon were friends, and made a rule, with him Cognesis. 2 would ride. The 2 in Bertniex's school would learn great wisdom side by side. Spadala swears revenge, but they reached Bertniex when Spadala the next day saw Bearslayer healthy in full view approaching close her castle's door. It can be thought what fear she knew. She asked her father that alone the coming guests he would receive, and since her heart was heavy grown, to her own chamber she would cleave. Bearslayer too had no more use to meet false Spadala once more, and so he made a good excuse, when Icecrockless threw wide the door. His journey hence had known delay, and to depart was now his whim. The forests had concealed his way, until Cognesis rescued him. Old Icecrockless had different views. Bearslayer was a welcome sight. His wish had been to send forth news to Lielvarde of his plight. And so disturbed he stared back hard, but brought out, at the youth's behest, his saddled colt into the yard, and sent him forth upon his quest. False Spadala watched with a glare, and in her eyes a madness grew. Ride to the east, she threatened there, and my revenge will follow you. Next evening they arrived at dusk in Bertniex's learned court, where he received them asking brusque, from whence they came and what they sought. The young men told him of their need, his father's words Bearslayer passed, with friendship. Bertniex agreed they were his pupils now at last.